Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Saturday the 12th of June 2021 and we're looking at the initial press releases from the G7 meeting, second day of talks between the leaders of the 7 major economies in the Western world. And this press release, literally announced a very short time ago, discusses and reveals the topics they were covering, which include China, Russia, and the European Union post-Brexit deal with the United Kingdom. So, let's take a look. So let's take a look at an article published by Bloomberg literally less than an hour ago from when we're looking at this. Its headline, Leaders at Summit Disagree on China and Brexit G7 Update. For those who've already listened to our weekly update for the week ending the 11th of June, which we published a couple of hours ago, you will notice that we referred in the political section that the G7 leaders were meeting again today. They met yesterday, were meeting again today in Cornwall, in England, United Kingdom, and that they would be discussing the issue of China and its dominance and how they're going to compete against China, particularly with regards to infrastructure spending for a number of countries, and also the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson was going to discuss the issue with Europe and certain aspects of the trade agreement that enabled Brexit to occur. And if we just take a quick look at what's been published here, it says the group of 7 leaders are delving into the busiest day of their 3-day summit as they discuss a path out of the COVID pandemic, as well as economic plans to counter China's growing economic and strategic clout. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is playing host to a fellow group of 7 leaders along the English coast, with all eyes on Joe Biden at his first summit as US President. For the host, tensions over Brexit are boiling over and risk to overshadow the event. The row with the EU showed no signs of progress, as Johnson said the UK will obviously not hesitate to invoke Article 16. To take unilateral action if a row over post-Brexit trade rules for goods shipped to Northern Ireland cannot be resolved. Now we have to say here, Joe Biden did express some concerns about the deal with Europe concerning Northern Ireland, simply because, let's be quite candid about it, there is considerable pressure in the United States from people who are either of Northern Irish birth or have moved to the US from Northern Ireland and have become American citizens. Don't forget, the EU themselves invoked Article 16 in January to disapply the protocol, so they can stop removal of vaccines from the EU to the UK, Johnson told Sky News. I've talked to some of our friends here today who do seem to misunderstand that the UK is a single country, a single territory. I just need to get that into their heads. Now also this afternoon, that's GMT plus 1 of course, there are differences of opinion on dealing with China. Let's read the article continues. With some sessions of today's talks focused on international issues, one European official pointed to disagreement about what a more united approach on China might look like. Germany is hesitant about a proposal for an alternative to China's Belt and Road infrastructure and trade initiative, believing there are already Western actions around the world working to limit China's advance, the official said. Germany is also reluctant to name a concrete amount for such a project, they said. US officials say the G7 is discussing a plan to include a program dubbed Build Back Better for the World that is intended as a counterpoint to Belt and Road, a $1 trillion undertaking that has seen Beijing finance a network of infrastructure projects. Bloomberg News reported previously the G7 would launch a green alternative to Belt and Road. Now we all know that Biden is under considerable pressure by the Green movement to invest heavily into this sector. And there is no doubt, to us at least, that Biden has either changed his mind or is firmly committed towards some form of green infrastructure spending plan. A US official acknowledged there were differences among leaders on how far to go in calling out China on human rights violations and in competing with it on things like infrastructure. So we have to bear in mind that China's economic clout and investment reach is considerable. Whether one likes it or not, by GDP standards, it is the second largest country, or economy, we should say, in the world. And many are predicting on GDP grounds, not necessarily per head of population, but overall GDP grounds, may very well surpass the United States in less than a few years. US plans standalone briefing after Biden's summit with Putin. Biden will hold a solo press conference after his Wednesday meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Geneva, a US official said, ending any prospect of a joint event with both leaders. So we're moving now from China to Russia. Current plans include a larger working session with the US and Russian delegations, as well as a smaller session afterwards that includes Biden and Putin, the official said, speaking on condition of anonymity. Biden will discuss topics raised in the meeting, including areas of agreement and of significant concern. Russian state-run news agency RIA Novosti cited Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov as saying Putin will also hold a solo press conference after the talks. And then, finally, the contentious Northern Ireland Protocol affecting trade for the UK region featured strongly in Johnson's talks with French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and European Council President Charles Michel. Johnson's office said he emphasised that urgent compromises are needed to resolve day-to-day difficulties the Brexit deal is causing people in Northern Ireland while preserving the peace in the region. The Prime Minister's desire currently is to work within the existing protocol to find radical and pragmatic solutions, Johnson's spokesman Max Blaine said at a briefing in Cornwall. Asked if the UK was no longer committed to the protocol in all circumstances, Blaine said the government would not rule anything out for the future. And finally, going back to Russia, one thing to watch for at the G7 is efforts by European leaders to ensure they remain part of the conversation around a collective response to Russia, as Biden prepares to speak with Putin on Wednesday. German Chancellor Angela Merkel, for one, is keen for Europe's voice to be heard in that meeting. And that's, quite frankly, because of the various gas deals made with Russia, particularly vis-à-vis Germany, and the concerns of upsetting any of these transatlantic arrangements. And we can see without doubt that Biden will be under pressure in view of the criticism of Donald Trump being soft on Russia. Biden will be under pressure to ensure that he is portraying or providing a much greater stance against Putin's extravagant and, shall we say, expansionist policies, both geographically, politically, and financially. So that's basically it for the G7. No point going any further. It's an interesting article. And what effect will this have on the world? Well, politically, quite considerably, potentially, if some follow-up action is continued. But we all have to just bear in mind, we live in a global ecosystem and a global economic system, and very little can be done by individual states, no matter how large or powerful they may be, working entirely alone. And clearly Biden's approach is to try and adopt, whether he will ultimately is another matter, but try and adopt and achieve a consensus. Whether this is the best for America or the Western world remains to be seen, but we have to understand that every country will have its own personal interests at heart, and sometimes by combining those interests and to some degree negotiating some of them away may prove difficult, but could ultimately and arguably achieve an ultimate course of action that everyone can sign up to. We in the UK call it a fudge, which often doesn't always lead to the best results, but at least provides some degree of cooperation, which perhaps to some extent did not exist before. Impact on things like gold and silver and values of the individual currencies, including the dollar, at least if there is a degree of harmony as opposed to discord, then markets generally suck this up and react quite favourably. Whether that will happen early next week, we shall wait and see. But as we've stated in our weekly update, published, as we say, a couple of hours ago, the big news next week will be the economic data in the US on Tuesday, coupled with then the FOMC announcement on Wednesday, Fed Chair Jerome Powell's comments thereafter, and whether they're going to adopt a slightly more hawkish approach because of the rather significant rise in inflation, which at the moment now tops 5% on an annualized basis, though a lot of commentators are stating, including government officials, that this is only a temporary blip as we come out of the coronavirus lockdowns and that the inflation rate will fall significantly. Let's wait and see if that happens. Hope this update's proven useful, and if it has, then please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell sign. Disclaimer. Illuminati silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.